My daughter called me dead weight and cut my allowance. She had no idea I was her secret business investor. The opulent dining room, usually a tableau of refined elegance, felt utterly frigid to Alara, despite the warmth radiating from the ornate fireplace that crackled with perfectly seasoned logs. The air, thick with the scent of polished mahogany and the faint, cloying sweetness of fresh lilies, seemed to absorb all warmth, leaving only a pervasive chill that settled deep in one's bones. Her daughter, Kaylin, perched imperiously at the head of the gleaming table, a queen on her throne. Kaylin's eyes, usually flitting distractedly over her latest designer acquisition or the newest, most exclusive social media feed, now bore an unsettling glint of triumph, sharp and predatory. Beside her, Thorn, Kaylin's husband, mirrored her smug expression, his lips curled in a self-satisfied smirk, a silent cheerleader to the impending performance they had meticulously choreographed. Alara, 78 years old, her posture still regal despite the years, sat across from them, her hands clasped calmly in her lap, a silent observer to the spectacle unfolding before her. A faint whisper of a sigh, almost imperceptible, seemed to escape her, a testament to the weariness that often settled upon her in their presence. "Mother," Kaylin began, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness that Alara knew, with a certainty born of decades of painful experience, prefaced something truly bitter. It was the same tone Kaylin used when she wanted to soften a blow, to make a demand sound like a benevolent suggestion. "Thorn and I have been discussing things, and with the new quarter for Bloom and Thrive approaching, we've had to make some difficult decisions." Alara merely raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, a silent question that revealed nothing of the deep currents of emotion churning within her. Her face, a mask of serene composure, betrayed none of the familiar ache that had become her constant companion in these encounters. She had seen this play out countless times before, albeit usually for requests cloaked as necessities, not pronouncements delivered with such chilling certainty. A quiet knowing settled upon her, the premonition of another layer of disappointment about to be unveiled. Kaylin leaned forward, her perfectly manicured hands, adorned with glittering diamonds, gesticulating dismissively, as if swatting away an annoying fly. "Frankly, Mother, your monthly stipend has become, well, it's just dead weight. We're streamlining operations, cutting unnecessary expenditures. You don't need it, do you? All those investments Father left you tucked away. It's truly just a burden on our thriving enterprise." Her voice carried a patronizing lilt, a feigned concern that rang hollow and cruel. Thorn chimed in, his voice a low growl of agreement, his eyes gleaming with avarice. "Exactly, Alara. Kaylin's business is booming, but every penny counts. You're a sharp woman, you understand financial prudence. It's time for you to pull your own weight, so to speak." His words were delivered with a self-important swagger, a man utterly convinced of his own wisdom and Kaylin's fabricated success. The words hung in the opulent air, heavy with their blatant disregard and staggering irony. Dead weight. Pull your own weight. The phrases echoed in the cavernous room, reverberating in Alara's mind like a discordant chime. Yet Alara felt a peculiar calm descend upon her. It wasn't the familiar sting of hurt that had often left her breathless, nor the quiet ache of disappointment that had gnawed at her spirit for years. No, this was different. This was the quiet, definitive click of a final lock falling into place, sealing away a chapter of her life. For years she had endured their thinly veiled contempt, their insatiable greed, their unwavering conviction in their own self-made success. She had watched heartbroken as the love and respect she yearned for, the genuine connection of a family, were slowly but surely replaced by a transactional relationship, where her value was solely measured by the depth of her pockets. Each condescending remark, each unacknowledged gift, each dismissive wave of a hand had been a tiny chip, eroding the foundations of her hope. Now, though, something fundamental shifted within her. The dam which had held back a lifetime of suppressed grievances, unacknowledged sacrifices and silent tears, simply crumbled, not with a roar, but with a quiet, decisive implosion. Her gaze, usually soft and yielding, the eyes that had always sought to understand and forgive, hardened to steel, reflecting the cold, hard truth of their words. Her eyes, which had once welled up with silent tears after their cruelest barbs, were now dry, clear, and utterly devoid of emotion like polished stones. Kaelin and Thorn, too engrossed in their own self-importance, too blind in their relentless pursuit of more, failed to notice the subtle yet monumental change. They mistook her silence for passive acceptance, her stillness for defeat. They saw only the elderly woman they believed they had mastered, not the formidable force she was about to become. "Is that so, Kaelin?" Alara's voice was a whisper barely audible, yet it cut through the room like a freshly sharpened blade, precise and chilling. "You believe my allowance is dead weight?" Kaelin nodded, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips, a flicker of glee in her eyes. "Precisely, Mother. It's just unnecessary. We thought you'd understand." She spoke with the smugness of someone delivering an undeniable truth, utterly oblivious to the precipice they stood upon. Alara slowly rose from her seat, her movements graceful and deliberate, each motion imbued with a newfound gravitas. She looked at her daughter, truly looked at her, and saw a stranger cloaked in the familiar features she had once adored, a face that bore the faint echoes of the innocent child she had once cherished. She saw the years of entitlement etched around Kaelin's eyes, the unearned confidence that puffed out her chest, the profound ignorance that shielded her from the truth of her own existence. A profound weariness settled over Alara, but it was quickly replaced by a burgeoning strength she hadn't felt in decades, a steeling of her resolve. "I understand perfectly, Kaelin," Alara said, her voice now clear and resonant, devoid of any warmth, a quiet pronouncement of judgment. "More perfectly than you could ever imagine." With that, she turned and walked out of the dining room, her footsteps light and purposeful, leaving her bewildered daughter and son-in-law exchanging confused, then increasingly panicked, glances. They had no idea that they had just extinguished the very sun that had been warming their lives, plunging themselves into an abyss of their own making. They were utterly oblivious that the quiet, dignified woman they had just dismissed as dead weight was, in fact, the anonymous principal investor, the silent benefactor, the very foundation upon which their entire fabricated empire, Bloom and Thrive, rested. And she had just decided, with an icy clarity, to remove it. This moment of chilling clarity was the culmination of decades of quiet sacrifice and unrequited devotion, a lifetime of giving without receiving. Alara's life had been one of immense privilege, born into old money and marrying into new. Yet, she had never mistaken wealth for happiness, a lesson her own parents had subtly imparted. Her late husband, Richard, a brilliant but unassuming tech pioneer, had left her an unimaginable fortune, built on foresight and strategic early investments in companies that would go on to define the digital age. He had often told her, "Alara, this isn't just money. It's potential. Use it wisely, and never forget that true wealth lies in kindness and connection." He had seen her quiet generosity even then, her desire to nurture and support. Alara had taken his words to heart, especially when it came to Kaelin, their only child. From Kaelin's earliest days, Alara had poured her heart, soul, and substantial financial resources into ensuring her daughter's happiness and success, believing that true love meant providing every opportunity. When Kaelin dreamed of attending a prestigious, exorbitantly priced art school in Europe, Alara had not hesitated. She had paid every penny, including lavish living expenses, private tutors for Kaelin's challenging subjects, and extravagant travel for Kaelin's inspiration trips to the most fashionable cities and exclusive resorts. Kaelin, even then, rarely expressed genuine gratitude, often seeing these grand gestures as her birthright. When Kaelin, fresh out of art school with a portfolio more style than substance and absolutely no practical business experience, decided to launch a luxury lifestyle brand, Bloom and Thrive, Alara had been her first, and overwhelmingly largest, investor. It was a leap of faith for Alara, but a desperate hope that this venture would finally bring Kaelin the fulfillment she seemed to crave, and perhaps, a genuine appreciation for her mother's support. Initially, it was a substantial seed fund, a cool $5 million, presented as a loan with no expectation of repayment, simply a gesture of belief in her daughter's entrepreneurial spirit. Kaylin, already accustomed to Alara's bottomless generosity, accepted it as her due, a natural extension of her family's wealth. She rarely mentioned it, let alone acknowledged it as a gift, instead framing it as a savvy business decision on her part. As the years progressed, Bloom and Thrive struggled. Its high-end products, while aesthetically pleasing and beautifully packaged, lacked genuine market demand, efficient production, or compelling innovation. Kaylin, more interested in the glamorous facade of being a CEO, the photo shoots, the exclusive parties, the networking events, than the gritty reality of running a business, consistently mismanaged funds, overspent on marketing campaigns that yielded little return, and neglected critical supply chains, often ordering exotic materials in exorbitant quantities that far exceeded demand. It was during these desperate periods, when the company teetered on the brink of collapse, that Alara truly became the secret backbone of the operation. She had established a separate, anonymous investment vehicle, Phoenix Alpha, and later, Starlight Holdings, funneling tens of millions, sometimes as much as $10 million in a single quarter, into Bloom and Thrive through a complex web of holding companies and offshore accounts. Her financial advisors, discreet and loyal men like Mr. Albright, executed her instructions flawlessly, ensuring no direct link could ever be traced back to her. Kaylin genuinely believed she was securing large, anonymous investments through her own brilliant pitches and networking, never once suspecting that the wellspring of her success was her own mother, always working silently in the shadows. Beyond the business, Alara had bankrolled Kaylin's extravagant personal life with the same quiet, unwavering generosity. When Kaylin found her dream home, a sprawling mansion in the most exclusive part of the city, citing its necessity for entertaining clients, Alara had quietly paid the entire $3 million down payment, framing it as an early inheritance from her deceased father, something Kaylin promptly forgot, believing she had secured a fantastic deal on her own. She had bought Kaylin and Thorne their fleet of luxury cars, a new Bentley for Kaylin, a top-of-the-line Mercedes for Thorne, and a sleek Porsche for their weekend jaunts to their Hamptons retreat, all gifts for various anniversaries or birthdays, gifts for which she received little more than a perfunctory nod. When Kaylin's credit card debt would inevitably spiral out of control from her relentless shopping sprees in Paris and Milan, Alara would discreetly pay off the balances, never once reprimanding her, only offering gentle advice that was immediately dismissed. The family vacations to the Maldives, the private jet charters to ski resorts in Aspen, the exclusive club memberships that provided social cachet, all were meticulously funded by Alara, yet Kaylin and Thorne presented them as the undeniable fruits of their own labor, a testament to their unparalleled business prowess. Their disdain for Alara grew proportionally with her generosity. They saw her as a relic, a slightly eccentric old woman with an endless supply of money, useful only for her financial contributions. Kaylin would often dismiss Alara's quiet suggestions about business strategy, born from her own astute observations and Richard's teachings, with a condescending chuckle and a dismissive wave. "Oh, Mother, what do you know about modern business? It's not like those dusty old tech companies Father invested in. Things are different now." Thorne, ever the sycophant to Kaylin's inflated ego, would nod along, occasionally adding a cutting remark about Alara's perceived lack of relevance in their fast-paced digital world. He often suggested Alara was out of touch or living in the past, words that chipped away at her spirit. Alara remembered Kaylin's 40th birthday, a lavish affair Alara had entirely funded, discreetly arranging for every detail, from flying in a famous DJ from Ibiza to catering from a Michelin-starred restaurant. As Alara, dressed elegantly but simply, tried to engage Kaylin in a conversation about a cherished childhood memory, Kaylin abruptly cut her off, her voice laced with impatience. "Mother, honestly, do you have to be so quaint? This is my night. Can't you just enjoy the party? And maybe try to mingle a bit more? You look so lost just sitting there." Alara had retreated to a quiet corner of the buzzing ballroom, her heart aching, watching her daughter revel in the fruits of her generosity, completely oblivious to the pain she inflicted, completely unburdened by any sense of gratitude. Then there was the infamous Christmas incident just last year. Alara had, as per tradition, purchased extravagant, thoughtful gifts for Kaylin and Thorne. A rare vintage Patek Philippe watch for Thorne, a bespoke diamond necklace from a renowned jeweler for Kaylin. In return, Kaylin presented Alara with a cheap, mass-produced scarf from a discount department store, wrapped carelessly in crinkled paper. "Oh, Mother, we just didn't know what to get you. You have everything, don't you? And honestly, you're so difficult to shop for." Thorne had snickered, adding, "Yes, she's right, Alara. We thought a practical gift would be best." Alara had smiled wanly, her throat tight with unshed tears, the sting of their thoughtlessness a sharp, familiar pain. This constant emotional neglect, this blatant ingratitude, had chipped away at her spirit, leaving her feeling invisible, unloved, and utterly used. The small allowance Kaylin had insisted on giving Alara, a paltry sum of $5,000 a month, was a mere token, a gesture meant to assert Kaylin's supposed financial independence and generosity, utterly dwarfed by the millions Alara secretly poured into their lives. It was this nominal sum, a mere droplet in the ocean of Alara's actual wealth, that Kaylin had so contemptuously deemed dead weight. A final crushing blow. The final insult, the dead weight comment, was not just a dismissive remark. It was a public execution of her worth in their eyes. A final declaration that she had no value beyond her financial contributions. It was the moment Alara truly saw them, not as her beloved daughter and son-in-law, but as two entitled leeches who had drained her emotional and financial well dry, leaving her hollowed out and depleted. The deep sorrow transformed into a steel-cold resolve, firm and unyielding. No more. The quiet dignity she had always worn, a shield against their barbs, would now serve a different purpose. A weapon. The morning after Kaylin's chilling pronouncement, Alara woke with a sense of profound clarity, a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. The emotional burden of their ingratitude, which had weighed her down for so long, had been shed, replaced by a quiet, determined resolve. The air in her grand, yet often lonely mansion felt crisp and clean, invigorated by a purpose that had long been dormant. She dressed meticulously, choosing a sharp, tailored suit of deep sapphire blue, a symbol of the shrewd businesswoman she once was, before she became merely a benefactor. Her reflection showed a woman with a calm, clear gaze, ready for battle. Her first call was to Mr. Albright, her principal financial advisor, a man whose discretion and loyalty were absolute, honed over decades of handling her family's complex affairs. "Mr. Albright." Alara's voice was calm, steady, devoid of any tremor, a stark contrast to the urgency of her request. "I need you to initiate the full divestment of all funds associated with the Phoenix Alpha and Starlight Holdings investment vehicles, effective immediately. Every single cent is to be withdrawn, and these entities are to be dissolved." Mr. Albright, a seasoned professional who had managed Alara's portfolio and discreetly facilitated her generosity for decades, understood the gravity of her words. He knew that Phoenix Alpha and Starlight Holdings were the anonymous conduits through which tens of millions had flowed into Bloom and Thrive, keeping it artificially alive. "Madam Alara," he said, his voice measured, "that's a substantial portion of the capital supporting Bloom and Thrive. A full withdrawal would effectively collapse the company within weeks, if not days, especially given their current cash flow issues, which I've noted have been particularly acute recently." "Precisely, Mr. Albright," Alara replied, her voice unwavering, a hint of ice in its perfect articulation. "That is my intention. No exceptions, no delays. Furthermore, I want all direct financial arrangements with Kaylin and Thorne severed. All standing orders for their credit card payments, house expenses, car leases, everything. Cancel them all effective today. And if they attempt to contact you, you are to inform them that all their financial queries must now be directed to their own banks and accountants. Is that perfectly clear?" "Crystal clear, Madam Alara," Mr. Albright affirmed, a hint of respect, even awe in his tone. He had always admired Alara's quiet strength and formidable intellect, but this was a level of decisiveness he rarely saw. a controlled power finally unleashed. Alara then called her lawyers, a prestigious firm specializing in asset protection and complex financial structures, their loyalty as assured as Mr. Albright's. She instructed them to immediately review all existing agreements and legal arrangements with Kaylin and Thorne, preparing to sever any and all ties that could potentially obligate her further. The process, she emphasized, must be swift, surgical, and utterly untraceable back to her directly. She wanted no lingering connections, no legal recourse for them. Within days, the first tremors of the impending earthquake began to shake Kaylin and Thorne's meticulously constructed world. Kaylin, while at her favorite high-end boutique on Fifth Avenue, attempted to pay for a new collection of designer handbags, an ostentatious purchase of over $50,000. The card was declined. Her perfectly made-up face crumpled in confusion. She tried another, then another, pulling out every premium card from her designer wallet. All declined. Her face flushed with embarrassment, a wave of cold dread washing over her as the sales assistant, usually fawning, looked at her with a hint of suspicion. Kaylin fumbled for her phone, her fingers trembling. There must be some mistake. My assistant handles this. It's never happened before, she muttered, storming out furious, her carefully curated image shattering around her. Her immediate call was to Thorne. Thorne, my cards are being declined. All of them. What in God's name is going on? She shrieked into the phone, her voice bordering on hysteria. Thorne, meanwhile, was having his own crisis at their sprawling mansion. The automatic payment for their exorbitant monthly mortgage, always paid by an anonymous wire transfer, had bounced. Their property manager had called, politely but firmly, requesting immediate payment and mentioning a potential penalty. His luxury car lease payment was also suddenly overdue, a stern notice having arrived from the dealership. My God, Kaylin, the mortgage payment didn't go through either. And my car. I don't understand. Our personal accounts are fine, it can't be us. Thorne's voice was riddled with panic, his usual arrogance replaced by bewildered fear. Their initial panic was followed by frantic calls to their banks, who could offer no explanation other than insufficient funds from the external source for the mortgage and car payments, and unexpected holds on Kaylin's cards. They contacted their own financial advisors, a young, inexperienced team Kaylin had hired for their modern approach. After digging, they confirmed that the massive, anonymous quarterly investments into Bloom and Thrive had simply ceased. There was no explanation, no contact from the investment vehicles. It was as if a spigot gushing millions had been turned off without warning, without trace. The financial reports, usually glossed over by Kaylin, now showed a terrifying deficit. The ripple effect within Bloom and Thrive was immediate and catastrophic. Payroll bounced, leaving hundreds of employees furious and demoralized. Suppliers who had relied on prompt payments from the seemingly flush company began to halt shipments of essential materials, demanding payment up front for existing orders and refusing new ones. Marketing campaigns, already paid for, continued to run, but there was no inventory to sell, leading to a public relations nightmare and thousands of angry customer complaints. Employee morale plummeted as rumors of financial instability spread like wildfire through the offices. Kaylin, who had always delegated the nitty-gritty of the business to her long-suffering COO, now found herself bombarded with desperate calls from department heads and irate creditors, her usual composure utterly shattered. Miss Kaylin, we can't fulfill the holiday orders. The fabric shipment from Italy hasn't arrived. They're demanding payment up front and threatening legal action. Miss Kaylin, the developers for the new app are threatening to walk. Their last invoice hasn't been paid, and they've locked us out of the system. Miss Kaylin, we can't make payroll next week. What do we tell the staff? They're already talking about a class action lawsuit. Kaylin, utterly out of her depth, would scream into the phone, her voice escalating with each new crisis. Just fix it. That's what I pay you for. This is ridiculous. Who would do this? Find the money, Thorne, find it. Thorne, equally frantic, tried to leverage their remaining assets, making desperate calls to banks for emergency loans, But without the consistent, colossal injections of capital, their empire was bleeding out, rapidly. Their credit lines, once seemingly limitless, were now tightening, banks unwilling to lend to a company in such a visible freefall. Their social life, once vibrant with sycophants and hangers-on, dried up. Calls went unanswered, invitations ceased to arrive. They spent days in a state of escalating terror, their usual arrogance replaced by gnawing fear and desperation. Kaylin's social media posts, once filled with glamorous photos of her successful life, became less frequent, replaced by strained, vague apologies for unforeseen operational difficulties and temporary market fluctuations. They clung to the desperate hope that this was a temporary glitch, a misunderstanding, that their anonymous investor would surely reappear, perhaps with an apology for the delay. But the silence from Phoenix Alpha and Starlight Holdings was deafening, absolute. Finally, after a week of watching their meticulously crafted world unravel, a terrifying realization dawned on them, slowly, chillingly, like a shadow creeping over a sunlit landscape. The anonymous investor, the one who had propped up their failing business for years, who had paid for their every luxury, had vanished. And with it, their entire financial infrastructure. There was only one person they could think of who had the kind of money, the mysterious connections, and the quiet, almost undetectable, means to orchestrate such a massive silent withdrawal. One person who had always been there, quietly funding their lives, yet whom they had just publicly insulted and dismissed. "Mother," Kaylin whispered, her voice trembling, a horrifying clarity dawning in her eyes. "It has to be Mother." Thorne's face was ashen, his blood run cold. "But why? She's just a sweet old lady. She couldn't. She has no idea about the business. She's so harmless." Kaylin's eyes, however, were wide with a horrifying understanding, a sudden brutal clarity slicing through her self-delusion. "She knows more than we thought, Thorne. Much more. We need to go see her. Now." The desperate scramble to salvage their empire, a frantic and belated act of self-preservation, had begun, leading them directly to the quiet, dignified woman they had dismissed as dead weight, utterly unaware of the devastating hand she had played in their very existence. The doorbell chimed, a polite, melodious sound that belied the storm brewing outside the stately mansion. Alara, seated in her sun-drenched conservatory, surrounded by lush orchids and fragrant jasmine, sipping Earl Grey tea from a delicate porcelain cup and engrossed in a classic novel, barely registered it. Her butler, the ever-composed Mr. Finch, a man of impeccable discretion and quiet efficiency, appeared at the threshold. "Madame Alara, your daughter and Mr. Thorne are at the door. They seem distressed." Mr. Finch's tone was neutral, but a flicker of something in his eyes suggested he found the situation rather gratifying. "Do they, Mr. Finch?" Alara's voice was calm, her gaze not leaving the page, savoring a particularly elegant turn of phrase. "Show them in. To the drawing room, please. And then you may take the rest of the day off. Your dedication has been exceptional." She closed her book, placing it precisely on the side table, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching her lips, a smile of quiet satisfaction. She rose, her movements unhurried, graceful and deliberate. The calmness that enveloped her was not an absence of feeling, but a profound quietude, a sense of rightness, of finally aligning with a long-denied truth. When Alara entered the lavish drawing room, Kaylin and Thorne were already pacing, their faces contorted with a mixture of fear, confusion and raw panic. The usual arrogant swagger had vanished, replaced by a desperate, animalistic energy. Kaylin's usual designer attire, typically immaculate, looked disheveled, her silk blouse askew, her perfectly styled hair slightly wild. Thorne's normally slicked-back hair was falling into his eyes, and his expensive suit seemed to sag on his shoulders, its tailored lines unable to conceal his inner turmoil. The veneer of their carefully constructed success was cracking, revealing the desperate, entitled individuals beneath. The room, usually a sanctuary of quiet luxury, vibrated with their palpable anxiety. "Mother!" Kaylin practically lunged at her, her voice shrill, bordering on a desperate wail. What have you done? Our cards are declined. The mortgage payment bounced. And Bloom and Thrive. It's collapsing. All our investors have pulled out. Who would do this to us? Her eyes, red-rimmed and frantic, pleaded for an explanation, yet her tone was accusatory. Thorne stepped forward, his eyes narrowed, his voice a low, furious growl. Alara, this isn't a joke. This is our livelihood. Our lives. We need to know what's going on. Is this some kind of technical glitch? Or did you somehow? He trailed off, unable to voice the full accusation, unable to believe the quiet woman before him, the woman they had always underestimated, could wield such devastating power. Alara walked to her favorite armchair, a plush velvet creation that offered both comfort and a subtle elevation, and sat down gracefully, her movements embodying perfect serenity. She looked at them, not with anger, for that emotion had long been exhausted, but with a weary sadness, a deep disappointment that had finally crystallized into acceptance. Sit down, Kaylin. Thorne. Let's talk. Her voice was calm, almost soothing, yet it held an undeniable authority. Kaylin scoffed, her patience having completely evaporated. Talk. There's nothing to talk about. We need answers. We need money. Our business is failing, Mother. The one I built from the ground up. The one I poured my life into. Alara's gaze sharpened, piercing Kaylin's bravado, stripping away the layers of self-deception. The one you built from the ground up, Kaylin? Is that truly what you believe? Her voice was laced with a quiet, devastating irony. Kaylin stammered, caught off guard. But of course. With hard work and dedication. And yes, some initial investment, but that was all my doing. My pitches, my networking. My vision. Her voice rose in a desperate attempt to defend her illusion. Indeed, Alara said, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching her lips, a ghost of a knowing amusement. Your pitches. Your networking. And my money. Millions of it. For decades. Kaylin and Thorne froze. Their eyes widened, their mouths agape, the color draining from their faces as the words sank in, slowly, horrifically. Alara continued, her voice soft but resonating with an undeniable power, each word a hammer blow to their constructed reality. Do you remember the initial seed funding for Bloom and Thrive? Kaylin? The $5 million I gave you? You called it a loan, but I never expected it back. It was a gift, a gesture of my belief in you, a gift that you promptly forgot or perhaps conveniently chose to ignore. Kaylin shook her head slowly, a dawning horror in her eyes, a sickening realization twisting her features. But the big investments, the anonymous ones, from Phoenix Alpha and Starlight Holdings, those were from major venture capitalists. My genius. My vision. They believed in me. Your genius, perhaps, Alara conceded, her gaze unwavering, but my vision for your happiness. Phoenix Alpha and Starlight Holdings, Kaylin, are merely shell corporations. They are conduits established by my financial advisors, Mr. Albright, on my specific instructions. Every single anonymous investment that kept your thriving business afloat, year after year, through your countless mismanagements and extravagant expenditures, came from me. Every single one. When your payroll couldn't be met, when your suppliers threatened to cut you off, when you overspent on another frivolous marketing campaign or lavish office renovation, it was my money that silently flowed in, saving your company from the brink again and again. It was my money that was your safety net, your hidden foundation. The color drained completely from Kaylin's face, leaving it ghostly white. Thorne stumbled backward, collapsing onto the velvet sofa, his eyes fixed on Alara as if she were a spectral figure, a ghost of generosity past, come to haunt them. His jaw hung slack. Do you remember your dream house, Kaylin? Alara continued, her voice gaining a quiet intensity, a relentless recitation of their financial dependence. The one you so proudly show off, the one you claimed you negotiated brilliantly? The $3 million down payment? That was me. Not your early inheritance, but a deliberate choice to ensure your comfort, your social standing. The fleet of luxury cars you drive? The credit card debts I quietly paid off. Those exorbitant balances from your shopping sprees in Paris and Milan? The private jet charters for your business trips and your endless vacations? Omi. All paid for by the dead weight you so gleefully dismissed yesterday. Her voice cracked slightly on the last phrase, a tremor of the old pain, quickly suppressed and hardened into resolve. Tears welled in Kaylin's eyes, but they were tears of shock and fury, not genuine remorse or shame. You tricked us. You let us think we were successful. You made us look like fools. You sabotaged us. Her voice rose to a shriek. I tricked you. Alara's voice hardened, her composure unwavering. I loved you. I supported you. I gave you every opportunity, every comfort, every dream you ever articulated. I watched as you squandered it, as your gratitude withered into contempt. I watched as you called me dead weight, while I was the very foundation holding your entire world together, the silent force behind your every perceived success. Her voice held a profound sadness, a deep disappointment that resonated in the quiet room. I gave you my fortune, my time, my emotional energy, and all I ever asked for, all I ever truly yearned for was your respect, your genuine affection. Instead, I received disdain, dismissiveness, and a constant reminder that I was nothing more than an ATM to you, a relic to be tolerated for her wealth. Thorn, finding his voice amidst his terror, tried a different tactic, his voice desperate, pleading. Alara, please. You can't do this. This is everything we've worked for. You're destroying us. We'll lose everything. Our house, our cars, our reputation. Kaylin will lose her business. Her entire identity. He sounded utterly pathetic, stripped of his bravado. Think about Kaylin. Your own daughter. Do you really want to see her fail? To lose everything? Kaylin, seeing Thorn's plea, quickly adopted a similar tone, tears now streaming down her face, a performance of sorrow. Mother, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. We'll do anything. We'll pay you back. We'll give you back your allowance. Just, please put the money back. Don't let our business fail. I can't live without it. Alara looked at them, their faces a twisted mask of desperation and belated, self-serving regret. She saw through it all with crystalline clarity. This wasn't genuine remorse for their past actions or for the pain they had inflicted. It was raw panic. They weren't sorry for how they had treated her. They were only sorry for the devastating consequences of their treatment. Her heart, once so easily swayed by Kaylin's tears, remained firm. My decision is final, Alara stated, her voice calm and resolute, like the quiet closing of a tomb, sealing their fate. The funds are irrevocably withdrawn. The anonymous investment vehicles have been dissolved. There is nothing to put back. You wanted to cut ties, Kaylin. You wanted to assert your independence. You wanted to remove the dead weight. Consider it done. You are now free to build your empire truly from the ground up. Without my interference. Without my money. She rose, her posture as elegant and unyielding as a statue, a monument to her reclaimed dignity. You have made your bed, Kaylin. And Thorn. Now you must lie in it. And learn perhaps that some things like respect and genuine affection cannot be bought, nor can they be simply dismissed as dead weight. They are earned through kindness, through gratitude, through genuine connection. She turned, leaving them stunned and broken in the lavish drawing room, the silence in the room now deafening, filled only with the echoes of Alara's devastating truth. The climax was over. The truth was out, and their world had just officially crumbled. Kaylin and Thorn stumbled out of Alara's mansion, their minds reeling, their faces pale with shock and disbelief. The grand facade of their lives, so carefully constructed on Alara's hidden fortune, had been ripped away, leaving them exposed and utterly vulnerable. The manicured lawns, the imposing gates, the quiet grandeur of the house they had so often taken for granted now seemed to mock their sudden poverty. The drive home was silent, punctuated only by Kaylin's choked sobs and Thorn's muttered curses, a desperate, guttural sound of a man facing ruin. The full weight of Alara's revelation crushed them. Their successful business, their luxurious lifestyle, their carefully curated image all had been a mirage, supported by the very woman they had so casually dismissed. The immediate fallout was brutal and swift. Within days, Bloom and Thrive officially declared bankruptcy, a humiliating public spectacle. Without the colossal, consistent injections of Allowance capital, it was revealed that the company had been operating at a massive loss for years. A house of cards built on debt and Allowance silent generosity. Suppliers sued for unpaid invoices, their patience having run out. Employees, furious over bounced paychecks and the abrupt collapse, resigned en masse, some taking to social media to vent their anger and detail the company's mismanagement. The brand, once a symbol of luxury and success, became a cautionary tale in the business world. Its collapse widely reported in financial media, with journalists digging into the company's questionable financials and Kaelin's lavish spending habits. Kaelin, once a darling of the entrepreneurial scene, was publicly humiliated, her business acumen ridiculed, her arrogance exposed for all to see. Their personal lives followed suit with cruel inevitability. The multi-million-dollar mansion with its unpaid mortgage went into foreclosure, a public notice hammered onto its grand oak doors. The luxury cars leased through Allowance arrangements were repossessed, towed away ignominiously from their driveway. Their credit scores, once pristine due to Allowance discreet debt management, plummeted, making it impossible to secure new loans or even basic credit cards. They were forced to sell off Kaelin's extensive designer wardrobe, her precious handbags, and Thorne's expensive watch collection, relics of a life they could no longer afford, fetching a fraction of their original cost. They moved into a cramped, rented apartment in a less desirable part of the city, a stark contrast to their former opulence, their social circle having evaporated as quickly as their funds. Friends who had once flocked to their lavish parties now avoided their calls, embarrassed by their public downfall, seeing them as social pariahs. Thorne, who had always ridden on Kaelin's coattails, his ambition fueled by Allaurance's wealth, found himself utterly unprepared for the harsh realities of earning a living through genuine effort. His ambition had always been a performance, not a skill. He tried to get a job in finance, leveraging his inflated resume and superficial connections, but his lack of tangible experience and real-world acumen were quickly exposed. Kaelin, equally inept at practical work, struggled to find any employment that matched her perceived status, or that didn't involve her directly supervising others. They were forced to take low-paying entry-level jobs they had once sneered at, simply to make ends meet and put food on the table. The endless, petty arguments over money, a concept alien to them before, became their daily reality, eroding their relationship further. While Kaelin and Thorne were spiraling into a self-made abyss, Allowance was, for the first time in a long time, truly living. The weight of their ingratitude and her own silent suffering had been lifted, replaced by a profound sense of peace. She called an old friend, Beatrice, a vibrant and spirited woman she had known since her university days, but had neglected due to Kaelin's constant demands and her own emotional exhaustion. They spent hours on the phone, laughing, reminiscing about shared adventures, and planning a long-overdue trip to the south of France, a place Allaurance's had always longed to revisit. Allaurance's rediscovered her passions, hobbies she had put aside for years. She started taking painting classes again, a hobby she had abandoned years ago to focus on Kaelin's nascent business and her endless needs. She joined a book club, attended symphony concerts, and volunteered at a local animal shelter, finding genuine joy in simple acts of kindness and intellectual stimulation, connecting with people who valued her for her wit and warmth, not her connections. She spent her mornings tending to her beautiful garden, her afternoons pursuing her interests, and her evenings dining with newfound friends who valued her for who she was, not for her bank account or her family's name. The house, once a silent monument to her generosity and their ingratitude, now resonated with a quiet peace, a sanctuary reclaimed. Mr. Finch, her loyal butler, noticed the profound change in her. Her eyes sparkled with a renewed vitality, her step was lighter, and a genuine unburdened smile often graced her lips. She was no longer just a wealthy widow burdened by her family. She was Alara, a woman reclaiming her life, her dignity, and her happiness, finding freedom in self-assertion. Months turned into a year, then two. Alara, now 80, radiated a quiet contentment that had been absent for decades. Her hair, once meticulously styled to project an image of effortless elegance, was now often tied simply, or allowed to fall in soft waves, a testament to her newfound ease and authenticity. She traveled extensively, exploring ancient ruins in Greece, enjoying art exhibitions in Florence, and simply relaxing on sun-drenched beaches in the Caribbean, soaking in the beauty of the world. She learned to play bridge at the local club, took up pottery, finding solace in shaping clay, and became a beloved fixture at her local community center, where she mentored young entrepreneurs, offering wisdom and genuine support, without the burden of expectation or the imposition of her own will. Her vast wealth, once a tool for others' extravagance, was now a means to her own fulfillment and quiet philanthropy, supporting charities she deeply believed in, without fanfare or public acknowledgement, finding true purpose in her resources. She occasionally saw glimpses of Kaylin and Thorne in the local news, usually in articles detailing the aftermath of Bloom and Thrive's collapse, or in reports about foreclosures and financial struggles. They were no longer the power couple they once were, but two individuals struggling to adapt to a world where they had to earn their own way, forced to confront the realities they had always avoided. Kaylin had found work as a low-level administrative assistant, a stark contrast to her former CEO status, and Thorne was trying to make a living as a freelance consultant, a path fraught with uncertainty and little success. They had been stripped bare of their inherited comfort and forced to confront the harsh realities of life without their silent benefactor. There were no calls, no desperate pleas, no manipulative attempts to re-enter Alara's life. The silence from them was for Alara the sweetest sound, a testament to her liberation. The lesson was profoundly clear, etched into her very being. Love and respect cannot be bought, nor can they be demanded. They must be earned, freely given, and reciprocated with genuine appreciation. Alara had learned through decades of painful experience that true generosity extends far beyond financial provision. It demands an acknowledgement of worth, a reciprocal spirit of appreciation for the giver. She had given everything only to be deemed dead weight. Now she gave to herself, to her own peace, to her own joy, cultivating a life of authenticity and contentment. She had found her freedom not in revenge, but in the courageous act of setting boundaries and honoring her own worth. The greatest act of loyalty, she realized, was ultimately to oneself. She had lost a daughter and a son-in-law, but she had rediscovered Alara, and that was a victory more profound than any financial empire. Thank you for joining us for Alara's powerful journey of reclaiming her dignity and finding true freedom. If you were moved by her story and believe in the power of quiet justice, you'll find many more compelling tales of resilience and life lessons right here on our channel. Make sure you don't miss any of our upcoming videos by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. We love hearing from you, so tell us in the comments below. Have you ever faced similar ingratitude from someone you've helped? Or what would you have done if you were in Alara's shoes? Share your thoughts and let's keep the conversation going.